Hi, everybody. We are live and local on this Wednesday. It is the 23rd of June, 5 minutes before 1 o'clock. I'm Austin Reed. Welcome to Central Valley Talk. We're so happy that you're with us today. We're looking at a live picture in Hanford because that's where we are going to be talking about today in this segment. Real quick, hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Give me a follow, and I will follow you back. Hey, it's time to figure out ways to protect yourself. And joining us live in our Tower District studios today, we've got the owners of Next Step Training in Hanford. Jeff and Marni, right?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Welcome. This is your first time on the show?
Yes.
Okay, let's start with what Next Step Training is. Jeff, you want to take it away?
Sure. So Next Step Training is myself and my wife came together about 2 years ago to form a company that we saw a real need, that a lot of people were buying firearms, and buying a firearm by itself does you very little good if you don't know how to use it. So both of us, having firearms experience in our backgrounds, decided to form the company Next Step Training together as a married couple. We've got the female aspect, we've got the male aspect, and train people at very reasonable pace and individualize it to specific people. So while we offer public classes, a lot of our training is actually private classes, individuals that express to us, this is what I would like to be trained on. So we can dial it in individually for the specific people.
And you work with men, women, all ages?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Great. Marni, tell me your experience so far. 2 years in.
Oh, 2 years in, it's been absolutely amazing. We've been able to find something together. You know, we've been married for almost 32 years.
Awesome.
This coming up this October. And interestingly enough, when you're working with firearms, you are a really polite couple to each other. It's great. Yeah.
It's funny how that works.
Right? No, but he came from a firearms background with having law enforcement. Mine was more education.
Okay.
In fact, about 15 years ago, was probably the first time I handled a gun, and somewhat reluctantly. But he brought me around a little bit, and one of the things that I found as a teacher is that if you really want to learn something, get to the point where you can teach somebody else. And so that started to drive me in my own experience, that I wanted to do this well. I didn't want to be that person that ended up on the front page of having an accident or, using your firearm improperly. And so that was my driving force.
So you've got classes, you've got one-on-one sessions.
Yes.
Walk me through some of the things that you guys work on with people.
Oh boy. So anyways, a lot of our people come in and they have never touched a gun before. They're not even sure if this is something that they want to do. And so in our beginners class, we start with a lot of safety, because one of our big saying is that everybody goes home with the same amount of holes that they started with.
Sure.
And so anyways, we spend a lot of time with safety, and then we start talking about the mechanics, and then simple things of how to hold the firearm properly, how to stand, how to press the trigger. And then we start talking about accuracy. And so from that point, that can end in that experience where some people say, okay, my bucket list has been checked off, I never want to do this again. And that's okay, but we talk to those people about, well, how else can you protect yourself now without a firearm, if that's your choice? But for those that want to go on and want to take the next step, so I want to take the right. We were always saying it, and so anyways, want to take the next step. Then they start going into more in-depth training about, let's dial in that accuracy, because some people will come out and they will shoot at a target and they're like, look at this, I have a hole everywhere, and you're going, okay, that's not what we want to do. We want that group to look really tight to show that you have accuracy, because especially if you need something that is that's under duress, where you have to respond under duress, that accuracy is going to go out the window. And so if you're not accurate to begin with, you cannot expect to be accurate when you're under stress, and you are still responsible for every single bullet that leaves your gun.
That's right.
Whether you meant for that to hit, a bystander or not.
Well, and Jeff, I would imagine, I mean, you working in law enforcement, it is critical if somebody, decides, okay, I want to be a gun owner, and I want to do this responsibly. It's a good idea to get that training, right?
Right. It's an individual's perspective. Some of the other people that come out to initiate training are people that have been in firearms, grew up on the farm. This is a rural community. They know a lot about firearms. They just never considered CCW. And the current climate in California is, the reality is that you need to find some way to protect yourself. And so if they come from a firearms background, they've probably developed a lot of habits that don't necessarily, are not necessarily compatible with CCW. And so there's a whole different aspect of firearms that comes together when we're talking about CCW versus plinking tin cans on a canal bank someplace. So we try to incorporate that. So that's another type of person that we typically train with, is somebody that's very familiar with firearms, yet they don't have all the safety and never considered carrying a loaded firearm on the person.
Now, as far as our viewers that are watching today or on our replay, and they're kind of going back and forth, they look at the news, they look at what's happening. We've got a lot of, unfortunately, violence, a lot of crime across the Central Valley, and they're back and forth. They're thinking, well, maybe I do want to get a gun. What advice would you have for them?
Wow. Getting a gun is very personal for each individual. And so one of the things that we found is a lot of men, well-intentioned men, will come in and say, you know what, I'm going to buy a gun for my wife. And they'll go and they'll pick this big, this cute little gun that's a revolver that's very difficult for some females to handle.
Sure.
Okay, it fit his hand, but it did not fit hers. And so one of the best things that they could do is, just like going on to deciding to buy a car, get out and try these different guns and see what actually works in your hand. One of the things that we offer our clients is we have different size guns, that just to kind of give them a starting point to say, okay, let's take a look, use our guns, and then what you can do is you can go out and narrow your shopping down a little bit and make a wise choice. The thing about guns is that their resale value tends to stay pretty high, and so if I say don't stay married to one. If you buy something that you don't like or that just doesn't work for you, sell it, get something else that does.
Good advice. We're looking at your website, so you guys have a lot of info there. What are some of the things that your clients say after working with you guys?
When can we schedule another appointment? Yeah. Well, a lot of them are kind of mind blown a little bit as far as how much there is to learn, because you really never get to the end of the journey. And once again, back to the whole next step thing, there is always something else that you need to be learning, especially when you start talking about home defense and you get past safety, you get past the fundamentals. Okay, so what does this actually look like as you draw without shooting yourself? Those type of things. What does it look like if you have to actually shoot in a crowded situation without shooting somebody you're not intending to? Do you shoot? And so we actually spend a lot of time with our clients and showing them how to get out of a situation so that they're not put in that that hard choice of do I pull the trigger or not. If they can avoid the fight, then they've totally won, and they walk away with everything as the winner.
Like the only gunfight we can guarantee that you will win is the one you avoid.
Yes.
Because even if you're perfectly justified in everything you did, you're going to pay a price. You're going to pay a price criminally, mentally. There's a lot of things that come along with that responsibility of carrying a loaded gun on your head.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of people, they buy a gun and they don't get training. They
Right.
just figure, well, I've got this. But
Right.
there's like you guys have been saying, there's a lot that goes into
Yes.
it. And it's not just about keeping them safe. It's about keeping other people safe.
Right.
And I think that's, you guys work on that with them.
Absolutely.
When are the classes and where?
Okay, so generally our classes are on the third Saturday of the month.
Okay.
And we teach out of Lemoore Sportsman's Club. So it's our neighboring town. But they have an amazing range out there that allows people to not only come out and work with us, but then if they're members there, or which you have to at least have a day pass to be able to work there. But if they're members there, they can implement all of the training that we've done, which we've found at a lot of the ranges. They won't let you do
Sure.
some of the things that, as like for instance, a CCW holder really needs to practice with, such as drawing from the holster. And that's just, a lot of the ranges are indoor ranges, and for safety reasons that they can't do that. But we have the freedom to do it out at Lemoore.
One of the other elements of Lemoore Sportsman's Club that we like and kind of despise at the same time is you're exposed to all the elements out there. It's an outdoor range.
Yes.
Okay.
So in 110-degree weather,
Sure.
it gets a little hot out
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
However, keeping in mind when we're talking about CCW, as a CCW holder, you don't get to pick the time and place you're going to have to deploy that gun,
Yep.
right, in
Yep.
self-defense.
Mhm.
So could it happen in 110-degree weather? Yes, it could. Could it happen in 32-degree weather with frost on the ground and fog? It very well could. Does your gun respond differently in those conditions? If your hands are hot and sweaty, do you have the ability to charge that gun, right? So there are a lot of different conditions that, like I said, it's a plus and it's a minus. It's a double-edged sword. When we're training at Lemoore, we have all these elements we have to.
And a larger space
Exactly.
helps too.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes.
Yeah, it's just the hot weather that's it's like,
Some of the best and the worst training I had was in a downpour. We
Oh.
train ourselves. We'll go over to Nevada and do some, up our step, take our next step, right?
Okay.
Because we always want to bring back more information for our students. But they train no matter what the condition is, and it was in a complete downpour, and I'm sitting there with my gun, and I'm learning a lot of things that I didn't know that would be an issue with my gun. For instance, I like to shoot Glock. That's my manufacturer of choice. But anyways, plug for Glock. Do I get anything for that? But anyways, whatever.
Now, is that a residual income?
Right, right. But anyways, I learned that, first of all, my Glock still fires when it's wet. Okay? I learned that I had issues with fixing different malfunctions that required racking the slide just because it got slippery. And so I had to do different things. Well, you don't want to learn about that stuff in the moment when you absolutely need it to save your life or your family's life. So you want to figure that out soon.
We've got about a minute left. Anything else I missed? Anything else you guys wanted to talk about?
You talked about first-time gun owners and what we get a lot of questions. I love using the car analogy because it's something usually people can wrap their head around. There's a lot of cars out there. When you show up to a car dealer, you don't simply say, "Hey, I need a car,"
Yeah.
right? You should have something in mind by the time you get there. How do you do that? Because you've driven different cars, so you like different aspects. There's a lot of gun ranges in the local area here that rent guns. So if you're considering getting into the guns, do what you can to get out there and, again, test drive a bunch of guns. There's different manufacturers. They carry different features with their guns. There's pluses and minuses. What's your budget? These are all things, just like a car, that you would consider buying a car. Do you want a Lamborghini or do you want a Toyota, right? They both serve the same purpose. They get you from point A to point B, you know, but there's a lot of different features. So I would encourage people, if you're wanting to go out and get a firearm, do it yourself. Don't have somebody else go out and get
Yes.
one for you. It's highly personalized.
Next step training, take the next step. Great slogan, personal safety, and classes, again, every third Saturday
Yes.
in Lemoore, whatever. It's at the Sportsman Guns Club, right?
Yeah.
Sportsman's Club, yes.
Very good. And then, see your website, nextsteptraining4
Yes, the number 4.
me.com.
Yes.
And then people can reach out to you guys. Your number's right there as well. And come back anytime. Great conversation.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
This is
You know,
awesome.
thanks for what you do, because realistically, you're saving lives.
Yes.
You know, so yeah, this was fun to talk to you guys. So thank
Very
you.
good. Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us. This is
Absolutely.
awesome.
All right, I'm Austin Reed. You're watching Central Valley Talk. We are going to take a quick break. We'll have more in just a bit. Stay tuned.